Something important is quietly unfolding inside the Philadelphia Eagles organization right now, and if you really pay attention to the timing of everything that's coming out, this isn't just random offseason noise. It's a clear signal about where this team is heading and what's at stake in 2026. We finally have a defined offseason timeline, and that alone already tells us a lot. The program officially kicks off on April 20th, but those first 2 weeks are strictly controlled. Meetings, conditioning, rehab, no real football yet. Then you transition into walkthrough style on-field work. Still no contact, no real competition. The real turning point comes with OTAs at the end of May, when you start to see actual formations, 7-on-7s, 11-on-11s, and that's where things begin to take shape. Then mandatory minicamp hits in early June, and that's when attendance becomes a statement, not just a checkbox, and that's where one name becomes impossible to ignore: A.J. Brown, because while OTAs are technically optional, history tells us that his presence or absence will speak volumes. If he shows up like he has in the past, it reinforces commitment. If he doesn't, it fuels everything that's already been building in the background. At the same time, there's another layer to this offseason that fans are watching closely: the arrival of Sean Mannion as the new offensive coordinator. And yes, it feels like it's taking forever to hear from him, but that's actually not unusual. We've seen this before. The real insight into what this offense will become won't come until those OTA sessions begin. That's when we'll finally understand how he plans to use the talent on this roster, and more importantly, how different this system will look compared to what clearly wasn't working consistently before. Because let's be real for a second, a lot of the frustration from last season wasn't just about execution, it was about decision making in critical moments. There were too many situations where it felt like the offense didn't have answers, especially under pressure. And when stories start surfacing about quarterbacks potentially influencing play calls in crunch time, that raises bigger questions about structure, authority, and preparation within the coaching staff. Now shift that focus directly onto Jalen Hurts, because this is where things get even more interesting. Reports indicate that the Eagles are not planning to extend him this offseason. That's not speculation, that's a message. And the message is simple: improvement is not optional anymore. The expectation internally is that Hurts has to take a step forward as a passer. You cannot be near the bottom of the league in passing production for consecutive seasons with this level of talent around you and expect long-term security without proving growth. That's the reality of the situation. And while there's still strong belief in his leadership, his work ethic, and his ability to win, there's also an understanding that defenses have adjusted. We've heard it straight from opponents. The blueprint has been clear: contain him in the pocket, force him to read defenses, make him win with precision instead of improvisation. And while there were signs of improvement, especially against the blitz in more recent stretches, the consistency just hasn't been there at the level this team needs. So now you're heading into a season with a new offensive coordinator, a quarterback under pressure to evolve, and an organization that is very clearly evaluating everything, not just results, but how those results are achieved. And while all of that is happening on the offensive side, the front office isn't sitting still either. Howie Roseman is actively exploring options at safety, and that tells you there's still a belief that this roster isn't complete. Whether that solution comes through a trade or the draft is still up in the air, but one thing is certain: they know that position needs to be addressed, especially in a defense that relies heavily on smart, disciplined safety play. So when you step back and look at the full picture, this offseason isn't quiet at all. It's calculated. Every decision, every report, every timeline, it's all connected. This team is reshaping itself, and the margin for error is getting smaller for key players. The biggest question now becomes this: are these moves setting the Eagles up for a breakout season under a new system? Or are we watching the early stages of a much bigger shift inside the organization? What do you think is really going on here? And when you really start connecting those dots, it becomes clear that this isn't just about one position or one player. It's about how the entire structure of the team is being recalibrated in real time. Take the safety situation, for example. This isn't just a casual need. It's something the front office is actively working on behind the scenes. Howie Roseman has already made it known that a move is coming, and when you look at the options being discussed, you can see two very different paths forming. On one side, you have the veteran route, guys like Justin Reed or Deshaun Elliott being floated as potential trade targets. Proven players, experienced, familiar with complex defensive systems, especially one like Vic Fangio's that demands discipline and awareness on the back end. On the other side, you've got a draft class that's being described as deep at the position, with multiple prospects who could realistically step in and contribute early, and that creates a real dilemma. Do you prioritize immediate stability with a veteran, or do you invest in a younger player who could grow into the role over the next 4 to 5 years? Because here's the thing, this defense isn't simple. Fangio's scheme relies heavily on safeties who can read the field, adjust on the fly, and maintain structure in split safety looks. That's not easy for a rookie, especially if you're pairing him with another young player like Andrew Makuba. There's a real risk there in terms of experience, communication, and consistency. At the same time, the Eagles have shown before that they're willing to take that gamble if they believe in the upside, and they've also proven that they can adjust mid-season if needed. We've seen them make trades late in the offseason or even during the year to patch holes when necessary. So going the draft route doesn't mean they're locked in, it just means they're betting on development first. Now layer that back into the bigger picture. You've got a defense that still needs fine-tuning, an offense undergoing a full transformation under Sean Mannion, and a quarterback who is essentially being challenged to prove he's the long-term answer. And then there's A.J. Brown, because no matter how you look at it, his situation is hovering over everything. Trade rumors haven't gone away. They've actually gotten more specific. There's talk about timelines, potential compensation, even concerns about his long-term durability being factored into how teams value him. And when you hear things like his value potentially dropping to something like a second-round pick, it raises eyebrows for a player of his caliber. But here's where it gets tricky. Just because there's noise doesn't mean there's intent. The Eagles are not a team that makes panic moves, especially not with elite talent. If anything, they're calculated to a fault. So if a move involving A.J. Brown were to happen, it wouldn't be because of outside pressure. It would be because they've already decided internally that it makes sense for where they're going. And that brings you right back to the theme of this entire offseason: evaluation. Everything is being evaluated. The quarterback, the system, the chemistry, the depth, even the long-term financial structure of the roster. And when a team reaches this point, it usually means one of two things. You're either about to take a major step forward, or you're preparing to pivot if things don't go as planned. That's why these next few months matter more than people realize. OTAs, minicamp, early impressions of the new offense, who shows up, who doesn't. All of it is going to feed into decisions that could shape not just this season, but the next few years of Eagles football. Because if Jalen Hurts thrives in this new system, if the offense finds its identity, if the defense solidifies that back end, then suddenly all this noise disappears, and you're looking at a team ready to compete at the highest level again. But if those questions linger, if the same inconsistencies show up, then the conversations we're hearing right now, they don't go away, they get louder. So now it really comes down to execution. Not talk, not speculation, execution. And the more you sit with that idea, the more you realize this isn't just another offseason where the Eagles are tweaking around the edges. This feels like a pressure point moment for the entire organization. Because think about it, teams don't send messages to their franchise quarterback unless they're trying to spark something. They don't allow trade rumors around a top receiver to circulate this consistently unless they're at least listening. And they definitely don't overhaul the offense unless they believe what they had wasn't enough to get them where they want to go. That's what makes this stretch so fascinating. You've got internal belief still there, no question about it, but it's being matched with accountability. And that combination can either bring out the best in a team or expose cracks that weren't fully visible before. And here's something else that shouldn't be overlooked. The Eagles are not operating from a place of desperation. They're operating from a place of expectation. This is still a roster with talent across the board. This is still a front office that has consistently found ways to stay competitive. So these moves, these evaluations, this pressure, it's not about rebuilding, it's about refining. But refining comes with tough decisions. If the young players step up, if the new system clicks, if Hurts elevates his game to another level, then everything we're hearing right now becomes part of the story of how this team re-established itself. It becomes fuel, motivation, the turning point. But if not, then the Eagles are already positioning themselves with flexibility, cap space, draft capital, potential trade assets. They're quietly keeping options open, and that's what smart organizations do. They prepare for both outcomes. So as a fan, you're watching two timelines at once. One where everything comes together and this team makes a serious run again, and another where these small signals we're seeing now turn into major decisions down the line. That's why every practice, every report, every update is going to matter, because the answers aren't coming all at once. They're going to reveal themselves piece by piece, and once you understand that, it changes the way you look at everything that's about to happen next. Because from this point forward, nothing is just routine anymore. Every rep, every decision, every absence or presence carries weight. When those OTA practices begin, all eyes won't just be on the scheme, they'll be on execution. How quickly does the offense look comfortable under Sean Mannion? Is the timing sharper? Are the concepts creating easier reads for Jalen Hurts? These are the subtle details that tell you whether this change was just cosmetic or truly transformational. And just as importantly, how does Hurts respond to all of this pressure? Because this is where great quarterbacks separate themselves. Not when everything is going smoothly, but when there's doubt, when there's noise, when there's a clear challenge being placed in front of them. Does he take full control of this new system? Does he elevate the players around him in a way that removes all questions? Because if he does, everything shifts instantly. The narrative changes, the confidence inside the building grows, and suddenly the idea of not extending him looks temporary rather than telling. But if the same issues show up, hesitation, inconsistency in the passing game, struggles against disciplined defenses, then the front office is going to have to face a much bigger decision than they anticipated. At the same time, keep watching that defense. The safety position might not grab headlines every day, but in this scheme, it's one of the most important pieces on the field. If they go young, you're watching development in real time. If they bring in a veteran, you're watching how quickly that leadership stabilizes the unit. Either way, it's going to directly impact how effective this defense can be, especially against the kind of offenses they'll face this season. And then there's still that lingering question about A.J. Brown, because even if nothing happens immediately, even if he shows up, even if he's fully engaged, the fact that his name is in these conversations tells you something. It tells you the Eagles are thinking beyond just this season. They're thinking about sustainability, about balance, about how all the pieces fit together long term. So now everything is layered. You're not just watching for wins and losses anymore. You're watching for direction. You're watching for identity. You're watching to see if this team looks like one that knows exactly who it is, or one that's still searching for answers. And the truth is, we're not going to have to wait that long to start figuring it out. The signs will be there early, maybe not obvious at first, but if you're paying attention, you'll see them. The energy, the communication, the confidence, or the lack of it, because teams always show you who they are, eventually. And as all of this continues to unfold, there's one final layer that really brings everything together, and that's how quickly things can change once real competition begins. Right now, everything lives in projections, expectations, and controlled environments. Coaches can script practices, limit contact, and emphasize teaching. But once the intensity ramps up, once players start competing for roles, once mistakes actually have consequences, that's when the truth comes out. Because it's one thing to install a new offense on paper, and it's another to execute it when the defense knows what's coming and still finds ways to disrupt it. That's where Sean Mannion's system is going to be tested for real, not in theory, not in press conferences, but in those moments where adjustments have to be made on the fly. That's what was missing at times before, and that's exactly what needs to show up now. And for Jalen Hurts, this is where ownership becomes everything. Not just running the offense,